All right, so we are saying last time our discussion was on contract evaluation criteria. So we saw the criteria that can be used to evaluate a contract. Basically, we said contract evaluation criteria are just the standards and factors used to evaluate a contract's quality or effectiveness. The criteria that is used to evaluate a contract's quality and effectiveness. That's the criteria. I know some of you guys still remember what are some of the criteria we discussed last time. Probably you can remind me here. What were the first criteria we saw? Sorry? Clarity or clarity, okay? What else? Relevance, appropriateness, and what else? Flexibility. And of course, there was enforceability, right? As another criterion, and that was criterion number 6. And we were saying, at least for a contract to be regarded as sound, and for you to have the confidence that with this contract, we are going to successfully get what we want, at least it should be a contract that can be enforced. Now, for a contract to be enforceable, we said at least it should be in writing. We saw this one. And apart from being in writing, at least it has to be signed by both parties. We also saw this one. And of course, the contract for it to be enforceable, at least it must define the rights and obligations of all the parties involved. Otherwise, if it is not specifying, or if it is not defining the responsibilities, obligations, and the roles of the parties involved, then that one we say it can be difficult to be enforced. So it should also include the provisions for resolving misunderstandings or resolving disputes. That one we said also that's another feature of an enforceable contract. So the law that can be applicable must also be there. So as we proceeded, we also looked at the importance of contract evaluation criteria. Nevertheless, that's not what we are discussing today. So we are saying today we are discussing something else, and that is procurement management plan. That's our area of interest today. So somebody some 2 days back was reminding me to send you some things to read. So I said, okay, I will. And of course I will. But one thing I should also emphasize here is this time around, the exam will be more of application than memorizing these things. So take note of that one. You have a lot of application, applying situations, right? So probably somebody will give you a situation and you have to apply whatever we're discussing here to that particular situation or scenario. So please take note of that one. But anyway, I will send you these things. Okay, so here is what we are going to discuss today: the procurement management plan. Then I said this is just very brief, just like the previous session we had last time. In contract management, basically, our interest is to make sure that we take care of the project that we want to implement up until it is implemented fully. Now, it takes many stages for us to make sure, for the whole thing to be successfully implemented. And the stages start from the moment uh, you see the need, that now we have a need here. You have identified a need in your organization. Then we say, I think this need to be resolved, or the problem that is here needs to be solved. So that's where you start from. That's where the whole process starts from, up until the last day that the project has been implemented and is being delivered to you. So in between here, all the things that happen here needed to be well managed, well controlled. That's why we say contract management. Now, one of the things that are involved in this process is the procurement of the actual services that you are looking for, or the procurement of the goods that you are looking for. That is one of the things that happen in between here. So now, the procurement is either the procurement of a service or the goods or materials has to be well managed. If the procurement of either services or goods is not well managed, the chances are the entire process as we are proceeding can also not be successful. That's why here now we are saying we should discuss now how do we manage the procurement as one aspect of the entire process. Now, in order for us to have this procurement as successful as we want, at least we need to have a plan. We should have a well-designed plan, as in how we are going to effect this procurement. Then at the end of the day, you say, no, our procurement was well managed. Why? Because there was a well laid out plan. So that's what we're about to discuss here. So at least let's see the definition, the elements, and the significance of this plan, and probably the benefits, if at all there are. So I know there are some benefits. But again, before we even define this one, we should take note that this procurement management plan is a document that an organization will always have and will be using in order for it, the organization that is, to do the procurement properly or successfully, following that the plan that is there in the document. So, being a document, that's why we say it has some elements. Because a document must always have elements or the parts. Part hii makamba zakuti, this part makamba is this, and so on and so forth. So, quick one. This one, procurement management plans are documents that define particular projects, scheduling requirements, and at least lay down the steps required to get into the final contracting. So this plan or this document, where the plans are said there on the document, the plan sets out how the procuring organization will acquire the goods and services it needs. So by that simple definition, one can tell that we are talking about a document that will guide you as in how you are going to procure, how you are going to get what you want. And within your objectives, actually. You want to procure something to achieve a particular objective. Now, this document helps you or guides you on how you are going to procure this so as to meet your objectives. So now, that plan that is there may include specifying exactly what needs to be procured, and probably estimating the costs of purchases, setting the timelines, and of course, assessing the risks within the supply chain. So in other words, this document defines how the procurement process will be managed within the organization. It is answering the question, how is your procurement process going to be done or handled. That's about that document. Maybe that's how we can define it in simpler terms. Now, this document has its own significance. What's the significance of this thing. Do we really need to have this document? Yes, we do. Or we don't. If you say we don't, it means it doesn't have any significance. But if you say yes, we do, we need this one, it means it has some significance. So just in passing, we find that it ensures that all the stakeholders know the procedures and the processes to be followed during the procurement cycle. Now, I was saying, when we are trying to procure something, for the reasons that we have, first of all, we identify the need. Now, who identifies the need? It is the user of that particular thing that you need. For example, you have realized that you have identified a need that, and that need is a service. You need a certain service, and you need somebody to provide you with that service. Definitely, the one to identify that one is the user of that service. So it starts from the user, whether it is a user department or an individual, whoever, but it starts with the user. Now that one, upon identifying the need, then the process goes to the next step, and that is the procuring authority. Now, in this case, if it is an organization, we have the procurement department. It is notified, requested to at least source that need that is there. So then the procurement happens up until it is used. In short, we call that one a procurement cycle. So by having this document, at least it ensures that all these stakeholders know exactly what are the procedures that are followed. It ensures that the organization procures the right products and services commensurate at the right price. At times, when you are in procurement or any other process, there are always risks that are associated with whatever you're doing. That is, as far as the supply chain is concerned, there are always risks there. Now, having a well-defined plan, there are high chances that those risks can be minimized. We know risks will always be there as long as supply chains are concerned. There are a number of risks. We cannot run away from them. And basically what we do with risks is just to manage the impact of such risks. So, in other ways, having a well laid out plan, what we can do is not to run away from the risks, but instead we can at least minimize them. So, this procurement management plan helps to optimize the resources or the resource use during the procurement processing. Now, what happens there is, since you have a plan, at least the processes can be streamlined. You can be able to streamline the processes, thereby optimizing the resources that you have there. You can avoid unnecessary spending. You can avoid at least unnecessary costs that you never planned. Why? Because at least you have a well laid out plan. So that's how significant this document called procurement management plan can be or is. Anyway, let's proceed. Now, I was saying this document, it has the components of it. As you are drafting it, the components are there. And basically, there is a template that we can also see, we'll share amongst ourselves, and at least be able now to spot those components or to see those components. So, we are saying this procurement management plan at least has a number of components. But those components, there are those three also that I've separated because they look like they are key. So, the first is the procurement strategy. And the other one is the procurement process, and of course the procurement control plan. So when you're saying a strategy, the strategy is more or less the same as a plan or a way of how to do things. So in this case, this whole discussion here, we are discussing how to procure properly and successfully. That's the whole discussion that we are having here. But again, we have to narrow it down to the actual plan, to the actual strategy, as in how we are going to do this, how we are going to move this from here to here, or how we are going to identify the supply and so on and so forth. That's a strategy. So this one has to be really specified in that document, as in how exactly are we going to do this. That's why procurement strategy is regarded as a component in that document. At the same time now, having the strategy or the plan, then there is another question, as in what steps are we going to take in order for us to answer that question how, in order for us to now put that strategy into practice. The steps that are involved in there, as we are specifying them, as we are outlining them in that document, that is a component of that document. That's where we say another key component is procurement process, and of course procurement control plan as another. Then we are saying, since these components are many, apart from the three that we are considering to be key, there are also these other components. For example, the SOW. A session before the previous session, we discussed the SOW, the statement of purpose. Probably we can't go back to it in its details, but the statement of work, as per our discussion last time, we said it is also a document that describes the product or service that needs to be procured, as well as the objectives and the requirements. That is the SOW. So in this now plan that we are trying to draw, the plan that we are trying to come up with, at least that statement has to be part of this plan that we are having. So we have the plan, which is a guiding document, but in that guiding document, then we have the SOW. The SOW is only there to describe the service and whether the products that we are trying to procure and the objectives. So a SOW is a component of this bigger plan or the big plan. Another component is what we call procurement baseline. So the question still comes, what is this procurement baseline? So basically is a detailed description of the approved schedule, the cost, and of course the performance parameters, and of course the indicators for the procurement. We want to procure this particular service. Let us assume that what we are trying to procure, we are trying to procure some construction services. We want somebody to come in here and construct something for us. We are procuring his services or her services. At least now, we must have detailed description of the schedule, and at the same time, the costs that are involved or that may be involved, and at the same time, the performance parameters for whatever we are procuring there. So that is now what we call the baseline. So this one is also another component. Here we have another component, and that component we call it source selection criteria. source selection criteria. And we are an entity that is trying to source some materials from suppliers. Now, we need to identify the source where we are going to get what we want. Now, what is the criteria that we are going to use to identify that supplier? So, the source selection criteria are the factors for vendor management that will be used to evaluate potential qualified vendors or pre-qualified vendors. Now, kodi tikakaona kuti tikufuna this service that we want from a service provider or somebody, a good supplier or material supplier, what is the criteria that we are going to use? Now, that one has to be also defined in that procurement management plan. So, we can say, no, we are going to be using open tender processes, or we are going to use closed tender processes, or we are going to use this method, or we are going to use whichever method of sourcing, of selecting a supplier. This one also has to be well defined in this guiding document. Now, when we are trying to source or to select a supplier of a service or a supplier of some materials, goods or products, we evaluate them. So evaluating somebody, that is to see if this one is really capable of providing what we are looking for, or if this one is really capable of meeting what we want, what we are looking for. You evaluate them. So if you can recall some previous sessions, during the discussions, we were saying, I think that was during the time we were discussing bidding processes, we were saying, when we are now evaluating the bidders, we look at them through two angles. One, the technical side, and then the financial side or the cost side. So, when you're evaluating these ones, at least we have to evaluate them using what we call technical evaluations. That is to see their ability technically to provide or to supply us with what we are looking for. And then after that one, we also evaluate them based on the price that they are giving us in. This once again, since we are saying this procurement management plan is a document, it means these ones have to be indicated in that document. There is an issue of contract administration. So, administering the contract as it is. This contract administration, we can also look at it as contract supervision. We can also look at it as contract supervision. Now, contract administration manages the final contract after it has been awarded, ensuring that the vendor management plan meets its obligation and performance standards. So, we always say that once a contract has been awarded to this contractor, and the contractor, his main obligations are to implement that one. But you, as a client, do not just go back home and fold your hands, relaxing, saying, now the contractor is on the site, is doing whatever he knows best. It's okay. After 6 months, he's going to deliver. It doesn't go that way. Why? There can be risks of deviations. So to avoid those deviations, and many other risks that may happen, you always have to be there as well, supervising. So your supervision is what is regarded as part of contract administration. So while the contractor will be supervising his work will be supervising his subordinates as they are doing the job, but you as a client also have a job of making sure that you are monitoring what this person is doing. So contract administration is another component that is there in procurement management plan, making sure that once we start rolling, there shall be times that I, as a client, will be required to monitor what the contractor is doing, or to supervise what the contractor is doing. Okay, so we also have this other component. The document must also at least show, or must have, a part that is talking about the claims and disputes, how they can be handled and resolved in the course of contract or project implementation rather. Because during the process of implementing a contract, the disputes will always be there and we cannot run away from them. Disagreements will always be there. Now, at least, should they occur, should they happen, at least parties should know how such disputes or claims shall be handled. That is a component. Then component ina ikugamba za contract termination. Contract munasayinirana, and that is a procurement contract. We are procuring services from this guy, and for some reasons there can be a situation that will make us feel uncomfortable and say we cannot proceed with this. Now, what shall we do? Are we allowed to quit or not? If at all we are, fine and good. But now, this document must guide us through. Remember that what we are trying to do here is that we want to make sure that there is a successful implementation of the procurement process. The act of procurement has to be done successfully. So that's why we are having this guiding document called Procurement Management Plan. Now, contract termination can occur for many reasons. The breach of the final contract or the breach of contract terms and conditions. There can be some other inconveniences that may happen along the way. And of course, just a mutual agreement between the parties involved. Amwene izinto zitente ngozisiya basi zithele pamene papa tiyezeke zimene zizi. By doing that, you can agree to terminate. So, but this one has to be there, has to be indicated in this document. There is an issue of sustainability. The issue of sustainability. At times, there are some other things that when we procure them, being fixed assets or materials, but for them to be more productive to us, for them to serve the purpose why we've procured them, they need to be sustained. So, in your procurement plan, the issue of sustainability or sustainment also has to appear, has to be there. We are assuming that we are going to procure this kind of machinery, but for it to be productive and to serve the purpose, it shall need to be sustained. How is it going to be sustained? Among others, maybe we shall need well-trained personnel to manage it or to handle that piece of machinery. Because if it is being handled by people that are not experienced, that are not capable, probably it may get broken down in no time. So there is no sustainability there. Now it's like you procured something, but since you failed to handle it properly, it's like you failed to sustain it, and it cannot, give you the returns that you were looking for. So giving support or maintaining the procured products or services can be of great benefit. So some of the activities that can be there as part of the sustainability of the products and or services that you are procuring may include the training, having manuals, having spare parts handy. That can also be part of the sustainability of what you are procuring. The idea is to have your procurement a successful one. You are able to procure something successfully, at the same time, whatever you've procured is giving you the returns that you want. Now, an issue of risk management. We have issues of risk management. Now, when you are working with different set of parties, the element of risk is always very high. And so this document, the procurement management plan, at least it should have a risk profile for each project that involves risk level, risk tolerance, level of detail, contract policies, and so on and so forth. Risk profile. Just as I mentioned in passing, I was saying, in whatever undertaking an organization is involved in, or an individual is involved in, there shall always be risks. So, the area you realize what kind of risks are likely going to occur, the better for you. Why? Because you'll be able now to figure out ways through which you can mitigate them or you can deal with them. In the supply chain, there are a number of risks that happen or that can happen. For example, you have suppliers who are not committed. Now, you have your customers on the other hand. Your customers are demanding something, are looking for something from you. You need to produce something and give them. But now, on the other side, the supplier is unable to supply you in time. What is going to happen? You're going to have supply chain disruptions. That is a risk, because at the end of the day, this is going to undermine the trust that is there between your customers and you. So it's a risk, right? At times, there can be a risk of having suppliers that are not honest. Suppliers who are supplying you with goods that are stolen from elsewhere, or suppliers who are involved in some malpractices elsewhere. This can lead into what? Reputational risk. So actually, there are various risks that can always happen to you or your organization in this supply chain. So by knowing these risks or having an idea of the possible risks and the risk levels, at least, and again the risk tolerance, that even if we face this risk up to this level, but we can still proceed, things will still work. Okay, fine. And then having a set of suggested solutions to each risk. This together, we call it a risk profile. So by having a risk profile, at least when you are setting out in trying to procure whatever you are looking for, you are well prepared. Technically, financially, mentally, you are prepared that should we happen to meet this kind of risk, we are still proceeding, we are not retreating. Zithekabe zimene tikutani, zimene tikufunazo. So in your plan, the plans that you are laying out, at least an issue of risk management must always be there. So that is another important component. Annie, are you there? Good. Hi, how are you? Good, good. Mulibelekele moni kwa wakhala umbuyo. Amve? All right. Okay. Let's see. One more component, if at all we have. Legal wise now. Everybody, every individual or every organization, we always want to be protected in one way or the other. There are always dangers around you, wherever you are going. Even the so-called bouncers, I mean, I'm also not defending him a bouncer, but there are always dangers around them. They will still try to find ways through which they can protect themselves, or something can protect them. So here, basically, we are interested in the legal matters that are associated with your business undertakings. So the procurement management plan should always be addressed and equipped with legal jurisdictions. The procurement management plan should always be addressed and equipped with legal jurisdictions. What this means is that when you are in your procurement processes, there can be situations where one of the people you are dealing with, or maybe some of the parties that you are dealing with, may try deliberately or not deliberately to antagonize you. They can try to do this probably knowingly or unknowingly. This is the time you shall need the interventions of some other parties or tools or instruments, legal-wise that is. So you shall always seek legal protection. Now, having that in mind, it means in the guiding or the guide that you have here, and the guide that you have is that one, the procurement management plan. This one should also highlight to you as in how you can get this protection against whatever threats are there. But not just the threats that may come from an opposite direction affecting you. There can also be threats that can be caused by you. It is also possible. You can have those threats that can be caused by you yourself. So to avoid such kind of problems that can be caused by you yourself, or the threats that can be caused by yourself, the thing is to know your legal jurisdictions. That is to say, whatever you are doing, you should be able to know that I should do, or we should do within these legal provisions, and we should not go outside these legal provisions. That one will help you to avoid some potential problems. So this one must be part of that document that is guiding you. Sorry? This legal jurisdiction and the risk profile, right? They can be similar at some point. They can meet at some point, but they are different, because when we are looking at legal jurisdiction, basically, we are just looking at some issues that can that are within the legal requirements of your undertaking. For example, let me do right things so that I should not breach the contract and offend the other party. Because if I do this, this other party probably can seek legal redress, and I can find myself on the wrong side of the law, right? So we are specifically concerned with observing the law here, legal jurisdiction, that is. So the other party we are dealing with should at least be operating within the legal jurisdiction. I here also should be operating within the legal jurisdiction. Fine. Whereas now, when we are saying risk what? Risk profile or risk management, that one. The risks are not only legal, or are not only to do with legal matters. The risks can take many forms. For example, risks of theft, risks of fire, risks of some other things. There can be some other risks that are not actually legal in nature, but they are still risks. So all we are saying here is legal jurisdiction, to a certain extent, can also be seen as part of the risk management, because when you are managing the risks, some risks can be legal-wise fine. So when you're saying legal jurisdiction, we can say its scope is a bit smaller, whereas when you're saying risk management, the scope is a bit broader because it is containing a lot of things in there, right? So that is it. Now pali nkhani yokhuzana ndi payments. Mapayment iso ndi nkhani yofunikiranso kwambiri. Tikudziwa kunaka kuti when we go out there tifuna tichite engage munthu kaya ndi contractor oti azitichita supply ma services ena achi kapena katundu wina wake, imakwana nthawi yona kuti we need to meet our obligations, and our obligations in this case probably we are talking about compensating those people, paying them their dues. How are we going to be doing this? What are the terms of a payment or the modes of payment, based on the project in question? Ndi nkhani yona zona kuti entity ndimene, and Mr. Theo here is the one who is responsible for handling the payments. Then for some reasons he has been transferred or he has been sacked, right? And after that this gentleman here Tupere has taken over. So sinkhani yona zona kuti Mr. Tupere will be saying ndizipereka mene nendaonera, mene ndaimverera. No, awawa azipereka ndalama zija mugwirizana ndi mene amaperekeraso awawa, mene somwe amaperekera charity asanachoke. So how are these people going to do this yet sanapezane pa ntchito, because amene amabwera awane atachoka kale? This document will guide them now. That document is going to guide him as in how we are going to be doing this thing. So the payments have to be done in accordance with the guidance that is there on that document. Then we have what we call constraints and assumptions. So in the process of doing your job, that is in the process of procuring whatever you're procuring, there can be some other challenges, not risks per se, but some challenges or some constraints that may happen along the way. Now, what happens? If it happens that you are passing through those constraints or those challenges, the chances are you may need to modify the way you do your processes. You may need to modify, or you may need to adjust how you do your things based on the constraints that are there. Now, when you are trying to adjust, what do you do then? Definitely, even the statement of purpose, the saw that we saw earlier also has to be adjusted. And of course, in the discussion about the saw, we also mentioned this one, that this document, it needs, it has to be adjusted accordingly. So, in this master plan, we are now calling it a master plan, the procurement management plan, there should be that provision that should it happens that there are some constraints or assumptions along the way, we shall have to adjust how we do things, how we do our procurement activities. This one has to be well covered in there, in that document. Okay. What next? So, the process of this plan, procurement management plan, takes some steps. There are some steps. Here, we are only seeing these steps that are here. You want to come up with the plan, and that plan, we say there are these components that are supposed to be there. We have seen quite a number of them. Now, let us try to draw that plan, or let us have that plan. So, you first define procurement objectives. So that's probably the first step. When you're trying to develop a procurement management plan, at least you are sitting here and you want to come up with that plan, then you define your objectives. Okay, define the plan yabo, you know. Koma nawo kuti ndi plan yabwino itheke, kodi muti chenicheni chimene tikufuna pacha ndi yani? You know, you are trying to come up with objectives. The reasons why we are trying to procure ma service amenewa kapena katundu amene. Why are we trying to do this? And now, how do we identify and evaluate potential suppliers? You are asking yourselves. So, this happens after the organization's objectives and strategies have been identified. You have identified the objectives, then we are saying, yes. Yeah. What happened? Who was tampering with my property here? Who was tampering with my property? Was it a bed? Who was doing that? So that I should see how to detect the marks. So I should see how to detect the marks of that person. So I have two suspects, right? Annie and Alvey. Let's look at him. Annie must have So there are two suspects here, right? All right. Those people, they will suffer the consequences. Sorry?
The slides.
But here I only have 10 slides.
That's a lot. The bidding process are 13 slides.
So yeah.
Like,